Hello, how is everybody today? Welcome to my channel, A Nurse's Garden. My name is Carla, and I'm so excited that you're here today. I am going to be planting some seeds today. I am going to be doing 3 different kinds. So I have the San Marzano, which is a paste tomato. I have the Roma, which is also a paste tomato. And then I have the one that I am the most excited about, and it is the German Johnson. It was my favorite flavor last year, and it was certainly one of the biggest tomatoes too. So they're big, they're heirlooms, and they have great, that classic great tomato flavor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some organic potting mix. Seed starting mix. Oh, I didn't realize that would be backwards. Ha! Well, anyway, this is the Jiffy Natural and Organic Seed Starting Mix is what that is. But what I also use is just a regular potting mix. Now, if you use a regular potting mix, you have to be sure and sterilize it in the oven. Some people pour boiling water over it and make sure there are no eggs in it to create larvae like from the fungus gnats or any kind of bacteria that's going to be harmful to your seeds. So I have taken some regular potting mix and I have sterilized mine in the oven. What I do is I just pour it in a large aluminum pan, heat the oven up. I've tried it a couple different ways, but what I have found is the best method is to heat my oven to 300, and I put it in there for about 40 minutes. I tried doing it at a lower temperature like some of the other people that I have followed do, but I could not get the internal, or well, not the internal, but the middle of the dirt, the temperature that I wanted, which is 180. Your temperature in the very middle of your dirt needs to be at least 180 to kill off all the bacteria and all the eggs that create larvae for fungus gnats to be able to be killed off. So anyway, once I've done all that, I put the majority of dirt in this size. This is the first year I've used this size anyway, by the way. I put about 3/4, I guess that is. I put about 3/4 of the way up with regular potting mix that I have baked, because the seeds, excuse me, the seed starting mix is so expensive. So I try not to use that or a lot of it. And so after I have filled the majority of the pot up with the regular potting mix, then I will add to the top of it, just the last little portion of it, the seed starting mix, because it is a much finer dirt that allows the seed to be able to grow whenever it's really not gained any strength yet. So anyway, that's what we're going to be doing today, and this is so exciting to be able to plant seeds. I always get in such a hurry whenever it's time to plant seeds. Last year I planted them probably in January, which was a little early, and so, oh my goodness, I ended up with all of these tomato plants and pepper plants, because what I done was I put several seeds in each pot or each cell, and whenever there were multiples that grew, because I was trying to ensure germination to make sure that I got at least one plant per cell, and so I had multiple. Well, some people pull those apart, separate them, and put them in other pots. Some people just pinch off the extra ones that grow. Well, I just didn't have the heart to pinch off any of them, so I separated and planted every single one of them until I literally wore myself out doing that. And I mean to tell you, I had over 400 plants. That was including all of them, though. That was including the ones that I was going to keep. Tomatoes, peppers, I done flowers, I done melons, I done so many different things. But it was mainly tomatoes and peppers. And so I had so many that I sold some to friends. I went to, well, it's not really a farmer's market. I went to, I guess that you call it a flea market. I went to a flea market that's close to my house and sold a bunch of them. So it was an experience for me, but it was also a lot of work. So I don't think I really want to do that this year. I don't mind growing enough to sell to family and friends, or even to give some away, because I did give several away also. So I don't mind doing that because I'm growing them anyway, and it's really not that much more effort to grow a few extras for family and friends. But to start seeds and grow on the level that I did last year, I probably won't do that again, unless I'm not working a full-time job quite as much. So anyway, let's get started. Okay, so now you can see that bag of seed starting mix the correct way, now that I have turned the camera around. So first thing I'm going to do is just fill these pots up. Like I said, about 3/4 of the way. Mash it in a little bit. 3/4 of the way with this one. And this is the one that I sterilized in the oven. Now, I don't normally do a lot of paste tomatoes, but this year I'm going to see which paste tomato I like better. I have already started the Jerusalem, and that is a paste tomato. It's a very big paste tomato. It's not like the Roma and the San Marzano. It's a much bigger tomato, so it takes it a lot longer to develop. So this year I kind of wanted to get something that would develop a little quicker. So now here comes the other dirt, and you can see how much finer that is. Well, maybe you can. I hope you can. You can see how much finer it is than the one that's in the pan that I sterilized. And they don't have to be completely full. They will do fine whether they're completely full or not. Okay, now after I've done that, I'll just pack it down in there a little bit. And then let me grab my labels. And while I'm thinking about it, labels can get to be expensive. So what I do, I buy these labels because I love the size of them. They're just so easy to write on. So what I like to do is I get these and I cut these in half, and I literally just start up here and I cut all the way down, and that way it still has a stem on it to be able to stick down into the dirt, and then there's still plenty of room to write on. And that way that saves you a little bit of money on your labels. So don't forget to label your pots before you put your seeds in, because if you do, you might forget, because I do that all the time. If I don't label it before I put the seed in, then I'll put 2 or 3 in, and then I'll realize, oh great, I've just forgotten what's in that pot. And it's not that big of a deal. I do like knowing what I'm growing because it's going to tell me where I may put it at in my garden. It may tell me how I'm going to fertilize it. Now once it gets a little big, you're going to know whether it's a tomato or not, but you may not know what kind of tomato it is. I may want to put my cherry tomatoes in a different location than the big tomatoes. So anyway, label them before you put your seeds in them. Okay, so I've got the first one labeled for San Marzano. We'll label this one for a Roma. And then the last 2, I'm going to do German Johnson because it is my very favorite. And I know, because it is such, the German tomatoes are such popular tomatoes anyway, so I know someone will ask me for some German Johnson stars. So I'm going to be ready when they ask me, and I'm going to have some already growing. So that's going to be the first one I do. And the seeds are really, really small. So you can see why I plant so many of them. It's because it looks like, oh my gosh, those are so small. There's no way those can grow into something, but they do. So I'm going to put 3 or 4 in each German Johnson one. Actually, I think I may put more. I may do a bunch of German Johnsons. Let's hope I don't get carried away like I did last year. I don't want 400 plants in my greenhouse this year. So let's see, there's 2, 4, 6. There's about 6 in that one. Let's do 8. And so I will separate these later. I think I have a video on separating plants, and we're going to separate some others today as well. So I'm going to put several in this one too. Okay. So there's the German Johnsons, and so once you get them in there, you'll just cover them back up. You can do it like that, or you can take a little bit of the fine and just sprinkle over top of it, because you don't want these tomato seeds very deep because they're so small. They need to be close to the top of the soil to be able to come up. Now we're ready for the Romas. It says Roma VF, and I still don't know what VF means. This is a container variety, so it will not get as big. I think it is a semi-determinate too, so which just means that it will grow all season, but it does not get as big. It will produce all season as well. Yep. Having a hard time getting this one open. And I usually switch all of my seeds over to some bags that seal anyway. These seeds are a little bit bigger. Tomato seeds vary. And I'm gonna put 3 or 4 in this. I don't want a whole lot of paste tomatoes. I do make a lot of salsa and stuff like that, but I actually prefer to use the regular tomatoes for that versus the paste tomatoes, just because I think they're more flavorful. It is a little more work to get all of the moisture. Well, you don't get all of the moisture out, but it is a little more work because you're trying to get some of the water out of them. But even though it's a little more work, I think that it is worth it to use the other tomatoes. And I use I use a mix of different tomatoes in my salsa. And I make spicy salsa, I make regular salsa, I make black bean and corn salsa. That's probably my favorite thing to do with the tomatoes. And that's it for these. I might sprinkle just a little more dirt on top. And that is it for these. Now these will be up in just a few days. It will not take them long at all. So you won't notice how long it takes though, because I will not post this video until after they have come up, and that way you can get the update as soon as you get the beginning of what's going on. So after you have planted them, some people will moisten their soil before planting them. I don't normally do that because the soil has some moisture in it anyway. What I typically do is I get them planted in the dirt, and then I put them in the container that they are going to be in, and then I put water in the bottom of the tray. I bottom water, and sometimes it takes it a little bit longer to wet all the way up to the top because the soil is not moist to start with. But if it has not gotten all the way to the top within 2 or 3 hours, I usually just take a squirt bottle and squirt the tops of them, and that helps encourage the water below to continue wicking up to the top. And so these will probably germinate in just a few days. I have some others that I will show you that germinated within, I think, 3 days. So, and the peppers, it takes them quite a while to germinate. So actually some of my peppers still haven't germinated that I planted actually before the tomatoes. So I'll take you in here and I will show you what I have going on under the green light so far. Not green light, under the grow light so far. Okay, so here is what I have going on so far. Let me pull these out so you can kind of see what's going on. I have some melons here, and these are the Petit Gris de Renan, I think is how you say it. These were so delicious last year, so I planted even more of them this year. So I'll have several of those plants. I have the Sunrise Bumblebee tomato. That's another melon. More Sunrise Bumblebee. These are the Jerusalems that I was telling you about a few minutes ago. These were planted on February 25th, and today is March 8th. So you see how big they have gotten, and you can see how many is in this little container here. So I'm going to be separating these later on today and getting each one in its own individual pot. Same thing here. There are several of them in here. And this is what got me into trouble last year that I was telling you about, that I ended up with over 400 plants. Hopefully I'm not going to do that this year, but if they come up, I can't help but to grow them. If they make their way out of the dirt, I'm not going to be the one to deny them life. Okay, so let's see. That is a Snow White cherry, so that is a cherry tomato, obviously. And those were so delicious last year. It was top of my list as one of my favorites, and it actually was my favorite cherry tomato. That's the Oxygen Jewel. Those did not do well last year, so I'm going to give those one more chance before I write them off. And just behind that one is also a Jetstar, which is a hybrid. It is not an heirloom, and so that's the only hybrid that I have. Here is the Dr. Witchy's. This is a yellowish orange tomato, one of the sweetest tomatoes you will ever put in your mouth, and absolutely the best yellow/orange tomato I've ever put in my mouth. My favorite. This is the Pink Brandywine. It was really good last year. The Big Rainbow is right behind it. They start off as pretty small plants, but they grow pretty quick, and they produce some of the most beautiful striped red and yellow tomatoes, and they have such phenomenal flavor. It was right at the top of my list of favorites too, and as a matter of fact, it was my favorite before I grew the German Johnson. The Black Strawberry, this is new to me this year. I'm excited to try that. The Celebrity is very dependable. It comes up and it grows and produces. Even when everything else in the garden seems to be not doing well, that Celebrity will go. So that's why I have that one. It's a great one. Then I have a German Queen, which is also a good German tomato. It was not my favorite last year. I thought it was a little too prone to disease. And behind that is a Vintage Wine. That is new to me this year. This one here, that has all of the ones growing. Looks like about 6, I guess, growing in that little pot. That's more of the Black Strawberry. I am growing one of those for a little sweet friend of mine. Belongs to a girl I work with who is precious. Behind that is Mr. Stripey. I have so many people ask about the Mr. Stripey. I should have probably done more of those. I don't know how many that is, maybe 4. Behind that is called the Mortgage Lifter. That is also new to me this year, and I'm really excited about that one. That one has a history of, I forget the year, but back years ago when people were having a hard time and they didn't know what to do, didn't know how they were going to survive, they could always grow this tomato, and they could sell them and make money on them, and they could also just grow them to help sustain them in their everyday life. And so that's how it got its name, is because they grew so big that they were really easy to sell. I cannot read my own writing. Oh, that's the Riesentraub. And I don't know if I'm saying that or not, but the way that the picture looked on the photo and the description that they gave of how sweet it is, that's what always attracts me to tomatoes, is when they start talking about how sweet they are, I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to try that. So, and this is also one more, and this is called a Campari, and I actually got these seeds from some tomatoes I had bought at Sam's Club that were so delicious that I couldn't help but save the seeds from it. And most of the time, I'm not a big fan of store-bought tomatoes because they just do not come close to tasting like homegrown tomatoes. But I knew that if they were that good coming from a store, I can only imagine how good they would be if they were grown at my home. So there they are. We will see. And then over here are the peppers. Now the peppers have been going a little longer than the tomatoes. I started all these peppers on February 17th. And I have cayenne, jalapeno, extra large jalapeno. And then back in the back, there is some poblano and some Fresno. And the ones that you see empty are the rainbow sweet peppers that never did come up. So I don't know what happened with those. I'll have to plant some more sweet peppers, I guess. And over here are some more melons. And some of these are the ones that I was telling you about earlier, that if you didn't put a label in it early on, you may not remember what is in it. And that's exactly what I've done on 2 of these. I don't remember what they're in. I mean, I don't remember what I planted in those, but I do know that it's a melon, and so that'll help me out a little bit. So anyway, that's about it. That's all the excitement for now. I'll bring you back later in a separate video and show you how to separate these guys into individual pots of their own. I hope you all have a blessed day. Good evening. Well, we finally have some sprouts. So the tomatoes that I planted the other day are finally germinated. So they've come up out of the ground, and I'm going to show you those and finish up this video. So I'll show you my little grow light station I've got really quick too. So I just put this together today. Last year I had a much shorter shelf, or shelving unit, whatever you want to call it. And so my trays hung off the edge on each side, and so did the light. So this year I have one that has 5 shelves. And I have a mirror behind it, as you can see me recording. And that mirror is to help reflect the light back onto the flowers. Last year I just had some aluminum foil on the back wall to do the same thing. So anyway, let's pull these out and look at these. Here are the sprouts that we planted the other day on the 8th. Today is the 12th, so it only took them 4 days to come up. And all of them have a little something in the pot. And there will be more that come up. Alright, so I am going to go ahead and end this video. I hope everyone has a blessed day. I'll see you soon.